When I came back to social media today, after 2 days being on a silent retreat, like self-imposed at home, I discovered that I have my subscriber count has gone over 100, which was such a nice thing to find. So I want to say thank you so much for all the new people who joined me. Um, I love having you here, and but also to everyone who's been with me since earlier days. So with that in mind, I just wanted to kind of say a few things about me and the way I do this by this I mean this channel and just my work as well. But I will start just by saying that I don't like to introduce myself by a name, and there's a reason for that. For a couple of years now, I have really felt like a dissonance with my surname in particular. I mean, I love my family, my parents dearly, my dad in particular, actually, as is quite a kin soul. Um, but the surname just really feels like old clothes that don't fit me anymore. And I see it in my bills or parcels that arrive, and every time I'm like, "Ugh, it just doesn't. I don't like it. Not the sound, and but just yeah, just not me anymore." And as for my first name, um, it's Maya, as that's the only one I have at the moment to go by. Um, but even with that one that I used to love, and I do love the name, but I just have been feeling off, out of alignment somehow with it. It just doesn't ring true anymore. But I haven't got alternatives yet. I haven't come up with one, or so that's the reason I don't like to introduce myself by name. I'm in my 52nd year, wrapping it up. I'll have a 52nd birthday in May, which I think it's really important, as what I'm doing. I would like this to be inspiring for older people, in particular, older like myself. I'm continuing. In fact, I'm ramping up my deconditioning process, which is essentially continual evolution and change basically. And the older we get, the tougher it gets. And I'll have some videos on this topic on its own, but not here. So not now. I mean, so there's that piece about me that makes me particularly excited to be doing this, but possibly doing it in a way that's maybe different than what you're used to seeing when it comes to astrology channels or human design, which is another piece of piece that I'm working with. I have been for 2 years almost now, experimenting and living my human design experiment, and it's been the best one so far. It's like the fastest way to speed up your evolution. So um, I'll be sharing more and more on this channel, even though it's kind of astrology based, but I incorporate the two as well. And on that note, I'm a 3-5 profile. I'm a generator, but I'm a 3-5 profile. And I say this because 3 is all about trial and error, but it's also like a mutation. And I have a lot of mutative energy and channels in my human design chart, which means and I identified with this archetype a lot even before I even knew about human design. In fact, I used that word shapeshifter in various contexts for years over the last 10 years as to identify myself with. So this channel too, and my Instagram, which you might want to follow me there because there's a bit more maybe going on there. I don't know, depending on what you consider more. But I keep changing. I keep just shifting or pivoting or just trying new things or trying things differently, and so that's what you can expect here with me as well. And that's it really. So I hope you will visit my website where I do astrology readings, as in that's where you get all the information for my astrology readings. And I will be incorporating human design, but sometime this year more and more, and you can stay tuned on this channel or on Instagram to find out when exactly, and I'll be doing some special offers on that as well. So to introduce it, to just start me, just to see how I'm gonna be doing it basically. And yes, so today the rest of this video will be dedicated to my last 2 days, which I I took 2 days offline, and it was a new moon in Capricorn. My natal moon is in Capricorn, even though the two weren't conjunct, but still. And yeah, so what are kind of some tips and insights I gained through from those 2 days, which I spent at home, not speaking, basically, and not, like I said, being online. So what will follow is 2 separate videos. In the first one, I'll be talking about all the little tips and nuggets of wisdom that I gathered for the last 2 days, during those 2 days. And then the final video will be focusing on futility as a theme that has been big, I have worked with, and I have reflected on, even not even more, but continue to reflect during these 2 days. And I say continue because it's been a theme of my life. How to live with this pervasive, never giving, never letting go feeling of there's no really a point to it, or rather the futility of life. And that is, as you will see, but how I lived beautifully with it. So there's no depression here, although depression is definitely a healthy part of that. But I want to talk about the beauty that I found in being born with that theme, to have to kind of come to terms with it. And so in terms of astrology, this would be Saturn in 12th, Moon in Capricorn, potentially, very much so, but more so Saturn in 12th. So in my case, it's in Taurus, which is also a big piece. Buddha, and I'm not saying I'm Buddha in any shape or form, but Buddha is Taurian in many ways. I think Sun Taurus, many planets in Taurus. And Buddhism is the Taurian path of the sort of peace and detachment from desire. So this kind of wisdom of detachment is a Taurian theme. So my Saturn is in Taurus. So if you have either Taurus in 12th house, or like I say, Saturn in Taurus in 12th house, or you have Capricorn in 12th house, or you have Saturn conjunct Jupiter, or you have Saturn in Pisces, or you have even not Venus, not necessarily, unless it rules Taurus, unless it's a Taurian Venus in your chart. So if you have any of these placements, the final video could be of relevance. So maybe I'll see you there. Spoke too soon. Also, this whole theme of futility is also present in terms of human design in the gates 25 and 17. So if you know your human design and if you know your gates, then yeah, this might be also of interest to you. The video that's coming at the end on futility. Oh, and final piece before I let you watch the other 2 videos that are going to be conjoined together is that the one following straight after this was recorded for my Instagram audiences. So you will hear that's the kind of language I'm addressing them, and I'm saying come to YouTube to watch the rest and all that. So just wanted to clarify that. So what did my 2-day silent retreat teach me? So I'm going to share with you some lessons and then tips, and mostly the human design, I think, and there will be some astrology too. So the first lesson, like first few hours into my first day of silence, was that I realized that I didn't respond with my sacral. I didn't have a sacral yes. So I'm a generator, pure generator. And I didn't have a sacral yes to doing this. The reason I jumped on doing it came from my open head. So it's the first pressure center that I have open as undefined. And what it means when you have an undefined head, which a lot of people I think do percentage-wise, it means that you will take on ideas that may not be yours, or rather not for you. So this came to me from someone as a suggestion, not just like someone shared something that someone does, stay silent during a balsamic or something. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, curious. And I'm a 3rd line profile. So I love experimenting, trying new things. And my environment is valleys and wide. So I have a wide range of interests, and I just love kind of trying everything just for once. So that was all going for me, but all of this was happening here. And I reflected on this few hours into my first silent day, and it was so. I just love how it's physical. All that was going on above my even throat, and my sacral was dormant. My sacral wasn't interested. Now, as the kind of few hours went on, I was feeling that actually this is nothing different to many other day of mine, which is that I'm mostly silent. I have set up my life, I don't really speak much loudly. Although I do love to listen to myself, like I love to talk to myself, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But it's really nothing new, nothing different that I can learn that I haven't already learned from. So I was a bit frustrated there that I, didn't follow my sacral. So I ended up kind of rectifying that and going, okay, I'm going to just follow my energy where it wants to go, and that's kind of listening to my sacral as well. And I wanted to read of human design, so I did. And so here's another tip: I have moon in ninth house. So wherever your moon is, the house your moon is how you learn about emotions. So the way I learn about emotions is by studying, and then just studying outside of myself, like but it's usually reading, like proper, like student kind of studying, reading either biographies or memoirs or just and everything else, like so essentially that's, like I say, studying emotion. Studying is the ninth house archetypal metaphor or symbol, but it's also educating myself emotionally through systems. And it is systems because Sagittarius is about systems, and so a school of thought, or like evolutionary astrology, or Hellenistic astrology, or human design. So those are the systems that I use to figure out my emotions, or to learn from them, or to understand them, my emotions, right? But also I'm an open emotional center, which is half of the population. So this should be applicable to you, to many of you, I would imagine. And I found, and this was another reason I was kind of like frustrated, is silence. And when I'm retreated, it's like the most blissful state for me, because it's like, and I wanted this experience to trigger me. Sorry, I maybe should have said this at the beginning. I want this experience to get me a lot to work with, to really wrestle with some stuff. No, it was bliss, and that's my natural state. When you have an open emotional center, I'm calm, like any calm water, still water. So hence another reason, and this was something I'm concluding now. It's not like I'm necessarily even knew this before, but it's because I didn't know human design. But it's the only way to, when I'm not with other people, which is my preferred way of living, like in physical proximity with others, I still want to be growing and experiencing and feeling. So my moon in ninth wants to read and study. So that's why I particularly love reading about shadow and looking for texts that are going to trigger me. Because as a generator, I respond. Basically, it's my kind of instinct. But also thoughts and words create emotions. So that's how I get my emotional center working for me, even though it's empty, if you like, and naturally calm. I kind of poke it so I get those waves going, and I can ride them and see what they mean. So that's another great reason and way to work with your open or undefined emotional center, is to look for words, even if you don't have moon in ninth, so that you trigger emotions and get them going, and you, in the peace and quiet and safety of your own company with no one else around, you can work through them. So this was the first day conclusion, was that this is nothing special. This is just another day for me. And it wasn't going to be a new experience in that sense, nothing special. But the kind of interesting piece was eating. So this is a story about second house and Gemini. So that is my combination. I have a Gemini in second house. But the message to you is, wherever you have Gemini, don't ever feel bad if you need to be distracted, if you need to be, if you're multitasking, if any, actually, because it's a healthy expression for you. And so for me, second house is pleasure, and pleasure, amongst other things, is food. Is one route to pleasure. And I've found that I love eating and watching something. So it's like my mind, Gemini, gets engaged, while it kind of absolutely enhances my sensation, pleasure of eating certain, well, whatever foods. And I really miss that. That was the first difficult thing, like, I had to wrestle with. It was just not the same meal. I mean, I enjoyed it, the meal, and but I think I may have been actually reading something. I can't remember now. I don't think I was, but still, I remember going, "Oh my God, I can't watch anything," because one of my things was to be offline, so that ended up being the piece for me. But so basically, your second house, your house of pleasure, whatever you have there, it's it's the kind of pleasure you like. So Gemini, it's distraction, a lot of different things going on at the same time gives me pleasure. Another thing I kept catching myself do is, and then stopping, is speaking out loud even though I'm alone and there's no one around. It's something I love doing, and so it got me thinking, and why that is. So again, it's a second house Gemini, but it's also Nessus there. So what that means, second house is voice, throat, like not in human design throat, but in the sort of body. Taurus is a throat area of the body. And second house is self-love, amongst other things. And I do love listening to my voice. It's not because I love my voice. I just love listening to it. I can't explain. It's not that I think my voice has a beautiful tone. No, genuinely no. But I just love listening to my voice. And I thought, wow, yes. And I think that's really that. I was going to say what I'm saying. That's fun, Gemini, again. Really is fun. Even when it's not fun, it's fun. So yeah, so that's a piece I just clocked onto now, this second. But also Nessus is there in Gemini. They're not conjunct. It's not conjunct Mercury. And Nessus is an asteroid. I think it's asteroid. That is, amongst other things, it's an archetype of lust. And lust is gluttonous, never enoughness of something, like desire. Lust for something is like we can never get enough of it. So whenever I write anything, I love rereading it. It is a bit like an addiction, and it's not a problem. Well, it's a problem in the sense that it's not necessarily healthy, but because it seems relatively innocent, I'm not bothering with it. But I'm noticing how it's a compulsion, and that's what lust and gluttony are. It's like we can't control ourselves, and I just do that. I reread and again, not because I love them, sometimes that too, but there's something about those are my words. So a message to you, or rather tip for you, look where you have Nessus, and you will find it in astro.com easily. You can additional objects, you can just tick it. It's at the bottom of that list in that table. And look where you have it, and you'll find if there is a conjunction in particular, but if not, and I would really, any tight orbs really work for those small asteroids, so not a wide one, but just go with it, whatever tells you, whatever resonates. So the house and any conjunctions would be things that you have a lust for, like a real gluttonous, potentially problematic. If it involves other people, if it's like with Venus, possibly could be problematic, because you can have that kind of uncontrollable, insatiable, not even desire necessarily, physical kind, although that's very likely, but just a kind of addiction almost to the other, or whatever Venus stands for you. So just an example where it can be potentially difficult when it kind of filters into other people's life. So look for Nessus. And the second house for what kind of pleasures, the sign, that's the flavor of the pleasure of, like So in my case, Gemini, it's like doing few things, like being engaged in at least a couple of things, coupled to Gemini, right? And then wherever you have Gemini, give yourself a break. Should you be someone who's beating yourself up about your, like, you can't concentrate, you can't sit still, you're distracted, and you love distraction. I used to like whenever I love to break up my my studies when I study. So Mercury is also study, and Gemini is also kind of learning new skills. And whenever I was on courses, I had to fiddle with something else, or like look like I'm disinterested, but I'm not. That's the best way I actually take information in, if I'm busying also my body, second house, right? In my case, with something else. So yeah, so there's another tip for you. And then what ended up being meaningful in terms of this retreat, like properly I could feel something working on me or in me, is being offline. And particularly, I ended up going online, but I have various devices and stuff. So I have one where I just go online to be looking, because I struggled for some words I didn't know the meaning of. And I was like, my God, 21st century, I haven't got my dictionaries anymore. So I completely rely on online, looking for new words. So I went online and I then researched some human design stuff and all that. So yeah, I was online, but that in itself wasn't meaningful to not be. What was meaningful is not to be on Instagram, not to be on social media, not to be connecting with anyone, even indirectly, by just like watching someone. And this is the piece about something I will expand on much more on my YouTube channel, and it's about futility of externalizing anything. And I'll leave it at that if that's of interest. If you have Saturn in 12th, Capricorn in 12th, Taurus in 12th, Saturn in Pisces, or Saturn conjunct Neptune, this might be of interest to you. So check my YouTube channel sometime today or tomorrow. But in terms of my experience of this 2-day retreat, silent retreat, I will definitely be integrating this absence online somehow more frequently than I have been, because that's not, I don't like it. The difference I have noticed is just wonderful, as in not to be engaging so incessantly as I used to. Even not necessarily engaging with anyone, just being constantly checking, looking if there's anything interesting and all that. So no, that's gonna change. And the last piece is about food. So moon, this was happening on the new moon in Capricorn, which is my natal moon, even though they weren't conjunct, but still. And moon is how we feed ourselves, how we self-nurture. And so I was going to fast. That was the plan. But I think yesterday I was going to fast on the actual new moon day here in the UK. But I didn't. And this is now when human design enters the story, where I follow my body as opposed to, and I just really, really wanted to eat. Now, moon was sextiling my, or trining my Jupiter. So, that's kind of like eating well and eating a lot. So I'm sure there was something to do with that. But also I know that it has certainly triggered my own kind of self-nurturing food issues. And I need to be wrapping this up. So if you want more on particular futility, check me out on YouTube soon later. Okay, and now finally, one of my favorite topics, futility. What is the point of life? What's the point in living? So, astrologically speaking, I have come to assign this question that has been on my mind since I can remember, to my Saturn in 12th. And but also that Saturn rules my moon in Capricorn, which is a skip step for me. I'm not going to explain those things now, because I have videos on those topics. I might remember to include them here. My point is skip step means it's a theme that is important in this life for me to resolve, and then the ruler of that theme would be a way to do it would be like how I can help myself resolve that theme. So that, for anyone, that's the kind of method, that's the principle with how you work with the skip step. So that's another reason why this Saturn in 12th is important, because it rules my skip step. And then in terms of human design, I'd found that this theme of futility is present, and this is far more recent. I've only been into my human design experiment for the last almost 2 years now. So, like I say, it's only been recent, and it's a gate 17 and a gate 25. And they're not Saturn gates, they're Chiron gates for me. And Chiron is important to, it's a bridge between Saturn and Uranus. It's the bridge that we need to walk to become fully individuated, which is Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius, which is Aquarian age, which is the new paradigm, where Saturn is the old order, the structures that we have built, and now we need to either dismantle or just move on to the next phase of building something else, something better serving us. So Chiron is the bridge between the two. So that's why I find particularly meaningful that these two gates that talk about futility are my bridge between Saturn and Uranus. It's my route to emancipation and individuation. But yeah, those gates, whatever you have, whatever planet in human design you have in those two gates, 17 and 25, will still be speaking to the themes of futility in their different ways. So they might not be as dramatic, maybe, if you would agree with me that my setup is somewhat dramatic, or maybe I'm just biased. But it will still be relevant. And in fact, I have Venus in one of those gates, or maybe even both. No, in one only. So why am I talking about this now? Because I had this 2 days retreat of silence, or rather I spent 2 days, almost full 2 days. I started speaking on the evening of the second day when my partner came back home, because that really was utterly, we had a phenomenal laugh. I mean, first night when he came from home, where I stayed silent throughout the evening. Although we watched something on TV and we spent time together, I was silent. But to begin with, for the first 20 minutes, we were absolutely in stitches. And he was really good. He was laughing silently. He's a 6'2" human design. So that's an exemplary human for you. So the rule was, we are not speaking. Therefore, even if I'm laughing, I will not be letting a sound out, where I was not really. I'm a 3'5". I break those rules, whatever. I don't stick to them religiously. So anyway, so we had a good laugh. But second night, I was like, I'm not gonna be. It's actually no point to this. Like, not meaningful. So that's why it's only been not exactly 2 days, just almost full 2 days. But during the day, another reason I was able to spend more time with myself than I would usually is because I was offline and not going on social media. And I very quickly kind of realized this is just my typical state, internally speaking, but also how I live a lot of my life offline. And I go through periods, like I've been lately far more online than 2 years before. For 2 years I was hardly online, and then again it's kind of like I have those kind of big stretches of extremes, if you like. So I'm very familiar with that state of being offline and being silent and just sitting and being, or just not doing anything. That's a Taurus piece. And how blissful it is. And how, I mean, again, I would just always like to make this for anyone listening, because I would hate anyone to be guilt tripping them or to making them feel like they're not doing something right or whatever. I am so lucky that my life has always been set up, or I have set it up, or both, that I could afford to do that. I always had someone safe and typically beautiful to be inhabiting, and was always able to have a lot of the private time and me time and away from the world. So, if that's not your setup because of your circumstances, then don't feel bad that maybe you want to be like this. But or you feel that this, if you feel that this is a calling, that something in you calls you to live like this more, you will find a way to do that. And if not, then no. So in those times, I'm always struck by this really like a huge, like it's a billboard, sign in front of me. It's never literal, and I don't even necessarily see it, but that's a sensation of like, this is all there is, and this is all that matters. Nothing else matters. So when I'm faced with that, and it's not even, it's so gentle. It's not like anyone's teaching me anything. It just bubbles up. Almost like the mist clears, 12th house, and I can see something far more clearly because I've gone really quiet, Taurus, and still, and not like I'm not meditating. I'm lounging on my sofa and just none of that. And maybe even Saturnian in a sense of typical discipline of sitting and meditating and sitting in a particular pose and all that. Saturn in 12th doesn't do anything the typical Saturn would do. It's like all of it is there, but it's just a bit different. So the discipline doesn't look at all like the discipline of the typical Saturn. And so this mist is clear, then I can feel more like this sense of this is all that matters, and how joyous and how fulfilling it is. This just sitting and being present, and for that to be the only purpose of living. And as I do that, as that happens, I'm immediately confronted with this. But what about what about work? What about legacy? What about business? What about leaving something behind? What about making a difference? What about doing? What about being recognized? What about being seen? What about helping, serving? I don't know, fill in the blank. All these things that we strive for, that are essentially a desire for something outside of ourselves. So as I think this, as this becomes another screen that comes up, but it comes more, it doesn't come from the mist, it comes from my mind. In the early days, like I say, 52, so like in my 20s, this would have been, I would have just been guilt tripping myself, and then I would be probably snapping out of this, feeling bad that I'm enjoying it so much, then by doing nothing and whatever, and then just doing something, right? But by now, what happens is quite the opposite. I think it's the opposite, the right word to use here. It's like I become so palpably aware how futile, so this is the futility, how futile all this external, all this looking to verify my existence and my importance and my worth, verify it externally. And I mean as well by others, but as like just one item on the long list, but also, and possibly more importantly, by myself. So it's almost like me trying to do something because I can then see myself doing it. I can produce something. I can actually have something to show for, or I have created, or whatever. I have, I am palpably, like I say, conscious and aware of how vacuous that feeling is, or how vacuous I am as I imagine myself, as I kind of experience this feeling of wanting to do something outside of myself, or needing external verification and validation. Like I said, not even by another, but just by me seeing myself doing something, therefore by myself validating and verifying. And it's it's like a tin, like you know the sound like goes. I haven't got sounds like really like a high pitched ping. And I'll introduce something else. So NLP is something I studied years ago. That's one of my biggest takeaway from NLP, neuro linguistic programming. Um, Taught me that when people use the high pitched voice, um, then they're lying. They're not telling their truth, right? And they might not even know it. And I, even now when I say it, just something in me just goes, yes. Because I don't know if you feel this way as well, but I certainly have. It's the deeper the voice, and it's not about bass or baritone or alto or whatever, operatic terms. I just mean the deeper of your own voice, whatever the depth of your own voice, not in terms of words and meaning, but literally the sound of it, the closer to yourself you are, to your core, to your truth, right? So the higher it goes physically, the more removed and the closer to your throat, head and mind and head. Now human design here, it is, and therefore, I mean, maybe this is generator because we're all sacral and at the core there. Maybe that's what it is. So I don't know, but certainly for me, that was so rang such truth. And I know certainly from my experience, every time my voice goes higher, I'm leaving myself, and I might be even saying truth, my truth, but I'm not connected with it. So it might be a memory that's what I once, when I was connected, figured out that it's my truth, and now I'm just kind of saying it, but the disconnection is there, or rather the thinning of the connection is happening. And then, but equally, and certainly I can vouch for myself that many times my high-pitched voice literally meant that I was lying. I was just not, the kind of typical, in England at least, this is a joke, like, so how are you today? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, fine. It's that thing. But if you can, oh, I'm good. You see the difference? So that's the difference between this not doing and just being, and doing so that you are trying to verify that you're worthy and valid, trying to validate yourself by seeing yourself, making yourself do and be busy and produce and whatever. So that's a difference. And it's an instant knowing of futility of that doing. And futility because it's unsatisfying, because it's like eating air when you're hungry for something substantial, or eating dust when you're hungry for something nutritious. That's, in that sense, it's futile, all that doing. Now, in terms of my own Saturn, and this is so the kind of like a tip for you, look to your 10th house, what sign you have there, and then look to the ruler of that sign. So in my case, my 10th house is in Capricorn, and Saturn rules Capricorn. So the ruler of my 10th is in 12th. 12th house dissolves. 12th house is the ultimate meaning, is the enlightenment, is the mystery of life solved but not being able to communicate it because it's there's no language for it, basically, that we all understand. Art is the only language, but even then understanding is completely left to interpretation, and you'll never know, and most likely whatever you understood will not be translated exactly to the people viewing and experiencing your art. But it's this kind of flip moment of just sliding, just sliding, just slipping, just flipping happens when you enter 12th house. It's like a topsy-turvy world. So whatever you built in 10th is basically just kind of topsy-turvy in 12th, if your ruler of 10th is in 12th. So that's my case. So that's also why I'm speaking of this the way I'm speaking, this whole external. I think I spoke of this somewhere. I have built, started building businesses, and very quickly I just realized that the futility of it. Yes, I could continue and I would have a business and all that, but it's like I would be building on sand, and the sand is where I live. Really, that's my home, um, where I'm meant to be exploring. And so I build castles in the sand. I like this metaphor. I'm going with it. But so they're never too tall. At least I have not seen any, or become too wet and then they get dried out. So you want them to be relatively low to the ground, right? Again, Taurus, right? And the beauty is in the fact that it will be washed away, Neptune as in 12th house, sea, ocean, waves, and yeah, and then you can build something else. But you need to know that you're building, your material is sand. Saturn in 12th is your building material is sand, right? And not using anything else, just sand. And water, sand and water. You're not milling, you're not creating a thing, because sand and water, can't they be like concrete? So no, you're not meant to do that. Just literally like playing on the beach like kids used to do. So building anything other than that for me has been a futile exercise, and source of a lot of self-flagellation, and this is the source of depression, when we just realize that when you are inclined my way, when you are designed my way, or this way I'm talking about, or I said like either Saturn in Pisces maybe, or Capricorn or Taurus in 12th, or Saturn conjunct Neptune potentially as well. There will all be then varieties depending on the house and whatever else, but signs. But it's in the ballpark, I would say. Depression comes from the sense that you just don't belong, or you just can't. It's not about being like everyone else, but if you are like everyone else, then sense of certainty is there. I think that's the big piece with Saturn. But if you have it in 12th, where Saturn is the wisest, if I may say so, and I may. And you will see it in books often, newer books in particular on Saturn in 12th. It's like, yeah, the mysteries of life, really, where you're in that house, and then you have the wisest teacher that still speaks the language of this world. So that's the kind of beauty of Saturn 12. Of all, it can probably communicate the wisdom of 12th house, which is the wisdom of what's the point of life, in a possibly most palatable way. I hope, at least that's how I feel. So this craving for certainty, which is Saturn, full stop, is in 12th house undermined. No one ever gets certain, or no one ever lives with 100% certainty, but some are gifted with, like, they're given an easier ride because that's their gig this lifetime, not to actually experience humanely as possible, to actually live a certain life of certainty. And I know people and who are far more certain, and their lives, but it's a genuine, they really feel it's certain. I'm thinking no, but I will not tell them that because they're not asking me, and it's their life is meant to be for them to feel certain, and their Saturn is a far more strong and clearer about its identity and its role from this place. But for me, no. So when it's in 12th, or when it's mixed with water anyway, then the certainty, you just know there is no certainty. Nothing is ever permanent. Absolutely, impermanence is the only permanence, change is the only constant and all that, but Saturn in 12th knows that day in, day out. So that's the tricky part about Saturn in 12th, which is usually explained as a difficult placement in many older texts in particular, is because you just know there is no point in building anything, it's not going to last. So the wisdom is then, or to build, not to build so it doesn't last, as in to build it without doing that whatever extra work needs for it to last. So, which brings me to why, well, like why we incarnate. So, and Saturn is another archetype of karma, which is connected. The two are connected. So this is evolutionary astrology now speaking. So we incarnate because of Pluto. Pluto is our soul's desire, but it's desire for what? And so we incarnate because we want to experience this and that, and we want to be living this, and we have all the list of our wants and desires, which is why we incarnate. And karma is a set of beliefs from previous incarnations. So we have all these lists of what our soul wants us to live, and then we lived it, some of it, all of it, whatever. And we based our, and this is the certainty piece as well, and karma in the sort of almost like a law vibration of Saturn. So, so I'll live this, and this is what this means, and therefore, that's what that is, and that's, if I do this, it will happen, this will happen, and if I don't do that, that won't happen, and blah, blah. So all these like set of rules gets kind of solidified, crystallized, that becomes our karma. That's Saturn wanting certainty. And Saturn is karma as well. So we end up working through our karma because we wanted our Saturn to keep us certain and solid in something. But the wisdom of Saturn and that kind of ultimate wisdom is put Neptune next to a planet or into a house, and you will know the ultimate wisdom of that placement. So Saturn in 12th is that kind of placement of the Saturn's ultimate wisdom. And in 12th, how to work with the ultimate wisdom of 12th house, which is the ultimate wisdom, right? So hopefully I'm making sense here. Which is to not look for certainty and not look for longevity. And this might be a travesty to kind of typically how Saturn and Capricorn are talked about. And I've said this many times, I think, before, or maybe I just thought it, is that the longevity piece is a Cancer wanting Saturn, Cancer who needs safety and feels safe in that ongoing. It's the Cancer that makes Saturn or Capricorn outstates welcome, hence longevity. And it's the Cancer from, again, its shadow expression of need for safety, and where if you ever leave me or go, then I'm scared. I'm just using an example of relationship, always easy one to use. So therefore, let's stick together forever. So that piece is Cancer working on Capricorn. Not Capricorn or Saturn is not about longevity, certainly not for the sake of it. It's building something solid, but never too solid that it can't be easily dismantled. And so that's the 12th house, that's the castles in sand being built. So back to Pluto and why we incarnate. This question of why is essentially giving reasons outside of ourselves to live or to do something. So you live for someone else, you live to have this, to accomplish this, So that's an impulse. So what I'm trying to kind of say here is that that's not an unhealthy thing to want these things. But the unhealth becomes apparent, or you become unhealthy, or it becomes unhealthy, this practice, the moment we want to hang on to it. So really what Pluto is saying isn't, and this is very much Pluto Taurus, Scorpio Taurus axis, is that yes, there is a desire, and you need kind of for a lot of it, you need externals, and you need to see yourself do it. You need to engage with another or with something else to experience. But the peace, and the only worthwhile peace, the only peace worth living for, is the experience, not the ownership, not the attachment to that experience. And the experience in its healthiest nature is transient again. So we're back to this piece about transience and impermanence. Saturn in 12th. But also futility, as in, so what's the point of life when you are not meant to stay in a relationship, build a family, build a business. That's like not the point of life. It's just to live. That's it, just to live and experience life as it comes to you. And I say it's neither nor or neither or. It's in the tension, in the sense that, yes, again, Saturn reality, 3D reality. So not just Saturn in 12, but just Saturn is, yes, we need jobs, we need family. Well, I don't know if we need family, but, well, to be born, at least you need two people to come together. Anyway, and so businesses, houses, to feel, protected from the elements, all the rest of the 3D stuff, it's necessary. But what we keep getting wrong, I think, is, and I certainly guilty of that, is that we prefer to think of all of these things as permanent, as they're going to be there forever. Cultures, countries, relevant nowadays, isn't it? That values, identifying with all of that, yeah. So seeking that permanence and certainty, that's where we get it wrong. But the toughest piece is to live with that, live with those kind of solid structures, and within them and with them, while at the same time knowing they're impermanent. Now that is the toughest piece to do. So it's almost like gazing into your lover's eyes and whispering sweet forevers, knowing it's not forever. Even if he ends up being, because somehow he might just end up being. There's no reason maybe for it not to be, but that's not, there's certainly not a guarantee. But you are far more likely to maybe stay in the any forever, while continually and absolutely believing in its impermanence and being comfortable in that, while, like I say, talking as if it's forever, but knowing it's not. So in terms of human design, I said that I was going to touch on the gate 17 and gate 25. So gate 17 is that piece about identifying ourselves with our opinions, and that's particularly relevant nowadays. Well, this year, I meant, with the South Node in Sagittarius and North Node in Gemini, is that the wisdom of 17 gate is that, and that's personally my Chiron, is that there is no one truth. There's just no one truth. And, I think I said this again many times, is that it's a quote from someone who said that I will never go to war for my beliefs because I might be wrong. And that's the wisdom of the gate 17. And the gate 25 is the last degrees of Pisces, and the couple of degrees of Aries, first couple of degrees of Aries. And this is as well, 17 is in Aries more than in Pisces. No, in fact, it's only in Aries. Again, early degrees of Aries. Actually, don't quote me on it. I think I might have gotten it the other way around. So anyway, gate, if you know your chart, and I'll have a link to my how to do a human design chart here in the description below. But 25 gate is about the futility of anything external. As I spoke of it earlier, so I'm not going to go, but that's the gate 25, as well as Saturn in 12th, which is how I lived with my Saturn in 12th, certainly from my 20s, when I clocked onto it and saw it and kind of locked in on him and all that, where human design is far more recent. But yeah, just quickly drew some parallel there for you. So I wanted to end on an anecdote, or my personal story that was like the ultimate manifestation of what I shared with you so far. Particularly at the beginning of this story of the futility, where I talked about how just being still and present is the point of living, kind of thing. So what I'm going to share first now is what came second. And it was almost like a aha. connection, I suppose, was made after the fact. So that piece was that relatively recently, and yet I still can't find it. Can't find it anywhere. I don't know where I read it, whether it was a book or just an article. But I usually am good at kind of keeping track of this, but somehow this was lost. 12th house, right? Saturn, and that's exactly was a piece on Saturn in 12th where they were saying whoever it was. So if you know this, anyway, you can tell me in the comments if you know the book. But it's really just one sentence that Saturn in 12th, people have to learn to live with the fact that there is no, or rather, to live without. Okay, to live without the answer to the question of why live, why bother living, but to learn to live with it. So I think also at the beginning I was talking about depression and the kind of darker side of this, and that's the point. Although Saturn in 12th is often traditionally and all the books considered to be like a bad placement or difficult placement, certainly a lot of depression. Depression is only an example when we try to fight, when we want Saturn to be the typical Saturn of stuff I spoke of. That's where the depression comes into it. And there is another piece of depression that is just pure sense of weight of the world, the external world, the world of 3D, the world of, outside, like politics, society, societal problems, for the reason one watches news, that world. You feel the weight of it. And that depression is the healthy expression of Saturn in 12th, because it's a most compassionate Saturn, and it's a kind of almost like a good way of allowing that energetic compassion to exist and for you to spread it without getting involved yourself with all these people, because that's where the boundaries come into it. Although Saturn in 12th is quite good at keeping boundaries, because you can't help anyone, and actually the point is not to help. Compassion is just feeling the extent of one's pain and like holding space for it if you're in their presence, but not reaching out to try to help them. That's the ultimate wisdom, if you ask me, of life and relationships. The toughest lesson, but the ultimate, really, again, if you ask me. So anyway, so this text, like I say, was about why, not why, rather how the Saturn in 12 people have to learn to live without having the answer to why. And it's something, like I said, I spent all my life trying to figure out, truly all my life. All my notebooks and journals are filled with that question, one way or another, me trying to answer it. And it's every time I come up with an answer, it's an instant knowing that it's just, that's not the answer. It's like, oh, I have a reason for why. And the moment I have it, it's like, it's not. So the first story really that happened in terms of timeline that preceded this, and I'm actually even not sure how connected they are. It might come to me as I share it. So this was about 7 years ago, I think. I was working with this woman. We were working on a project together. She was the lead, and I was kind of helping her with an aspect of it. It was so exciting. And we would meet up and for lunches or for whatever, and then discuss the stuff. And she was also Taurus. I can't remember. Her Saturn wasn't in 12th. And anyway, this particular lunch, I don't know why, we're just kind of coaching each other, or because I think at the time I was relatively new into my coaching. No, I wasn't new, actually. I was quite old. Anyway, we were coaching each other. Let's leave it to that. And asking those good coaching questions. And the question that came up was, if you knew you were going to die in, I don't know, let's say 6 months or a year, how would you spend that time that you have left? And without a second thought, in an instant, my answer was nothing. Like, the question was, what would you do with the time left? Nothing. That's it. And now, as I say it, I can just feel my sacral just expanding, and I was like, okay, that really wasn't, that I even wasn't expecting that at all. And so kind of, we talked about it, or I talked about it, and basically, so we elaborated what it would look like. And we were living in this house at the time that had a bit of a garden. In fact, had a quite big garden that was kind of secluded anyway. So I said I would just spend my days in the garden, sitting on the ground so I can feel the earth, and that's it really. And go for walks. I would just be in nature. I wouldn't wanna. I think I even said, or maybe when I spoke to my partner afterwards, well, maybe that's where I elaborated on that. But it was like, also wouldn't want to tell anyone. I would record videos, goodbye videos. Although I was a bit uncertain there, maybe I should give my parents and my brother a chance to say goodbye. But yeah, I wasn't sure. Anyway, so none of that. And then it was, no traveling, nothing. It was just going to be nature and me and my partner, actually. And then I kind of, she asked me to kind of more questions. And basically, it was about just that sense of, in that quiet and that stillness, life is so intensely buzzing. And of course, nature, but it's not just nature. It's like, it's urban. I live in outside London, the metropolis, whatever. So it's not like some wilderness somewhere. And I love that sound of life outside. So in human design, I'm valleys and whites. So those sounds that are kind of nondescript, but they're just of life buzzing, is kind of my environment. So there's that, I'm sure, as well. There's that at play here. But what struck me was, and I certainly haven't accomplished anything. There was, like, I had a few careers, I've done all kinds of stuff, and yes, I suppose the one thing I accomplished is to find the love of my life and had that experience, a relationship that was just out of my dreams. And so, yeah, there's that piece that I feel I accomplished, but nothing else. Even on my list, or not that I even had a list, but yeah. So, and I was struck by how none of that actually matters. And I said to her, I must have just done everything I wanted to do if there's nothing I want to do. And that was at a time, I can't remember if I was expanding it so much within my, within the context of my Saturn in 12th, but certainly later on, when I kind of reached another level or layer of the depth of my Saturn in 12th, where I recall that incident or instance, and yeah, I thought how telling it was, how true of me that was, or how true of my Saturn in 12th it was, that is the most precious way of living, which is just being and not doing. So just pause the video to just take a pause, and what I thought is that this is my story. This is, and I'm sure will resonate with many, hopefully all of you, 102 I think I have, and whoever else listens, just for the sake of, so you don't feel alone. And that's quite nice for Saturn in 12th and Moon in Capricorn as well, to feel there are somewhere quite far away people that speak your language. So yes, I would love that. But it still is just a story of A, B, C, D, however many people, specific people. And story might not be even the best expression here, the word here. It's really the what this lifetime is about. What have we incarnated to want to experience? So this is such an important piece to always remember, that if you don't resonate with this, that's all it is. It's not, if you don't resonate, you probably won't be even worried about this. But still, I just want to say that whatever one is experiencing That's what we are here for, to experience certain human condition and to experience certain ways of being human, and really just certain ways of specific, just a few ways of being human. And for me, it's all about stuff I shared here and my other channel, whatever. But then where we cross over and pollinate or cross-pollinate is, how can this help you, even though you don't have Saturn in 12th, or you don't have any of those placements that could resonate, but you do occasionally worry about futility of life, or you have depression, or you have those moments. So the lesson, so it's almost like I spoke in the other video, if you want to know how to practice and cultivate emotional integrity, look to Moon in Capricorn as to how to do that, to start yourself to get those muscles strong, which is to contain the emotion. Right? Contain the emotion, don't spill it, and go into solitude to process it. And then do your own moon, whatever the moon is. Do whatever you processed, your moon will want to do something with it, if it's not in Capricorn, right? But the starting point of the integration, emotional integration, moon in Capricorn is helpful. So you look to something else to help you. So if you don't have Saturn in 12th, but or in Taurus, you struggle with, like I say, with the sense of futility or depression, what's the point of living? So you come to Saturn in 12th to help you. So the help is to remember to come back to you. So the reason I'm pausing here longer than I would normally is because maybe your point, or very likely your point of living in this lifetime, is to be in the other, to be external, to be reaching out, to be building, to be not be living in this paradox and be aware of it every single second of your existence, heartbeat, right? Every single heartbeat of yours, to be aware of this, like, I might be building this to make it permanent, but I know it's not going to be permanent. So that paradox might not be something you are born this time to want to experience, but because that's the ultimate paradox, really. We are all kind of on a level conscious of it, but maybe you have a few more lifetimes before you will even care for any of this, will want to therefore experience it. But like I say, you might still slip into that, as that is also being human, irrespective of your Saturn in 12th or not. So then, just like I say, remember, don't feel bad that you actually do want validation, you want verification from external and all the stuff. But when it gets too much, you just went too far. You remember that actually the ultimate point is not to do anything, and to just be and sit and find bliss in that simplest of silences within you, with the nature. So it's almost like I just had a vision as I spoke with this, like an image. So you, whoever this resonates with, like a younger adult, and me, forgive me for sounding patronizing, I don't mean to, but it's like an older, like an elder being the Saturn, right? Older adult. So that would be my teaching. That would be what I would, like, you'd come to me, and if I was your grandmother, right? And because you know that with me you can just like do nothing. That world that you are so hell-bent on getting the approval, because that's okay. That's for you in this lifetime. It's important to really do that. Really go to town on getting the approval of another. But there is a Saturn in 12th grandmother, me, right, in this metaphor, you come to where you can just do nothing. We don't speak for the week you are with me. Very basic. Do you want food? Do you want coffee, tea, whatever? And we are just content in our silences, and we spend time in nature, and that's it. And you know that it's like you regain your sense of center and self that is deeper in you, and is kind of supporting this younger you, or younger in the sense of desires, where you're at in what you want of life, from life. And I think this is in terms of what's his name, Jeffrey Wolf Green, he talks about different level of consciousnesses, and I'm not really sure about that, but that could be that, like where you're at in your evolution. You might still want to be very concerned with mundane or rather 3D life and all the goodies that it has. But then when you need that moment of respite to connect with the bigger picture, with the trajectory of you in, I don't know, 10 lifetimes, and with your soul that's gonna, lives in you even now, you might want to kind of come to your grandmother archetype for a week of silence, or a couple of days at least. And that's it. On that note, I hope this was helpful. And again, thank you all for being here, and all you 100 and so subscribers. Makes me happy. Thank you.